guys, welcome back to Room 237, and I got another Patreon request. This is from my good friend jamaral81. He's a patron of my tallest tier on Patreon, so he gets a few reviews this month. And one he wanted me to review is one I knew of. I remember when it came out, but I had never seen it. And that's 2011's Apollo 18, which is on Netflix. And I think he wanted me to review it. Maybe he thought it would be an easy rant. And I really don't know what to make of this film. It was directed by Gonzalo Lopez Gallego. Probably mispronounced that name. This was his first English-speaking film. He's a Spanish filmmaker. He had done other films like Open Grave, which is a zombie film, 2012, The Hollow Point, Backdraft 2. Very limited cast. I mean, Warren Christie, Lloyd Owen, Ryan Robbins. Produced by Timur Bekmambetov. Forgive me for that as well. Released in 2011. It says 86 minutes, but there's like 10 minutes of end credits. So it's really hour 15. It's a very short film. But like the first half really drags. It was made on a budget of $5 million, made 25.5, so it pulled in a profit. And this, I really don't know what to make of this film. I can start, I think the reason why I never really saw it was I'm really not a sci-fi fan outside of like zombies, mad scientists, stuff like that. I'm not really a space boy. You know, I can watch some stuff. I do like the first Alien. The first Alien is really the only one of the series I'd say I really like. And one of the reasons why is because of how it's done. It's Jaws in space. That's what they were trying to make, and I think that's what it is. This is like Blair Witch in space. Found footage, very limited cast. It has this sort of claustrophobic type feel, stranded somewhere. There's a threat that you don't really... Well, Blair Witch doesn't show you anything, which I appreciate. A lot of people don't like. I still think Blair Witch is the most effective and well-done found footage film. I will argue that forever. But this is also alternate history, saying how, you know, Apollo 17 was the last official trip to the moon. All subsequent Apollo missions were canceled, but we actually did send Apollo 18, and there was 84 hours of footage that the crew made. And then someone uploaded it to lunarstar.com, and that's what this film is comprised of. And I would say its concept is better than the actual film. You know, I would say Gravity, but I think Gravity is more of like a visual spectacle. The ending, but I really like Gravity. Because Gravity was kind of like those survival movies, like 127 Hours, or I'll even say Wrecked with Adrian Brody. It's like, whenever you want to make the most extreme example of something, send it in space, because there's no way you're going to get help. The 3 astronauts, one stays in the command module, the other 2 go to the moon, and they're the ones walking around doing their stuff. I will say they did a good job at making the film look, because it takes place in 74. It was the 1974 supposed Apollo 18 voyage. They did put grit and grain over the film to make it look like 70s 8mm or whatever it would have been. They did do a good job with that, but there's things that they do later on that is sort of a detriment to its own self. For example, the effects on the creatures. It's CGI. They show them very little, again, which I appreciate. And just the way it ends, there's just plot holes. The first half is pretty boring. It is one of those movies when it's like, because one of the biggest things with found footage is, why are they filming? Why does this have to be filmed? Why does this have to be in the movie? Blair Witch is really the only one that really addresses it and is believable. It's been a while since I reviewed found footage films. I might have said that for one or two other ones. But with this one, it really is just the two guys in the shuttle. Like, it shows them shaving or preparing a meal. Just a lot of ancillary stuff. Like, if this was supposedly real, why would they put that stuff in there? Or at least with Blair Witch, it was for sanity purposes. I want to say when this came out, they were... Yeah. I guess the Weinsteins, Bob Weinstein, said it's real, it was found, and I don't know if it went to the lengths that Blair Witch went to with its marketing about being real. That'd be really hard to do, especially in 2011, with the way the internet is, and just with what came with found footage after Paranormal Activity, because this was around the height of just found footage being everywhere. There really isn't much of a plot for me to go into. They get to the moon, they start walking around, doing their stuff. They wake up, they realize their flag is missing. They go out to investigate. One sees footprints and realizes it's not theirs, doesn't have the same... I think it was because of the tread of the boots wasn't the same. So he realizes it's not theirs. They start looking around more. They find these cosmonauts, bodies of cosmonauts in one of their rovers or ships. They're dead, which they don't really show much of it, just enough to get glimpses. And I was thinking, if there's no oxygen in space, wouldn't your body be preserved? Like, there's no real elements for decomposition. I know you decompose naturally, but I mean, even when you're buried in a casket, since oxygen is... I just don't think... I think you would be more preserved. I know it's a nitpick, but they go inside, like the Russian shuttle or whatever. They find spacesuits with blood all over it. So it's a creature feature. And then at one point, there's two guys, Ben and Nate. Which Ben was played by Warren Christie. Nate is played by Lloyd Owen. And then the guy that stayed in the module is John Gray. He's played by Ryan Robbins. And I will say, Lloyd Owen and Ryan Robbins look like guys from the 70s. Like, they really fit. While Warren Christie looks like a modern actor. Because that's another thing about this. I don't really buy that this is found footage. It looks like a movie trying to be found footage, which I know is sort of a huge detriment to a lot of found footage films. Like, they don't They don't look authentic. They look like someone trying to make a found footage film. But at one point, Nate goes out. He's screaming about he sees something, feels something in his suit. He turns around so we can see him. He's screaming. We see some spider crab looking thing crawling around in his helmet. Then he runs off. Ben goes out and finds him, I think unconscious. And of course, it's CGI. Brings him inside. He's kind of delirious. Notice that there's blood on him. Takes his suit off. There's a huge laceration. And he says he can feel a protrusion of something hard and solid. He cuts it out, and it looks like a rock. A moon rock. Yeah, I guess it gets inside you. It's like the scarabs from the Mummy. But those are our creatures, the moon rocks. Moon rocks are actually these moon spider crab things. And his wound gets infected, starts turning into the crazies. You know, he's got bloodshot eyes, he gets hostile. He even starts smashing all the stuff in the place. At one point, even before that, before anything happens, their communication goes down. And as it goes on, like, Ben tries to get Nate to the Russian ship or pod. And I will say it did get more interesting once that whole thing happened. Once he got attacked, it did get more interesting. But yeah, what was it? They wanted a they're on, like, I don't know, a moon golf cart thing, like a rover. Nate is attacked and, like, dragged into this cavern full of those things. So then Ben makes it to the Russian pod. Nate's outside banging on, like, let me in. Tells him he can't let him in. He's contaminated. And then we see the inside of his helmet is just engulfed with those creatures. Which then, you know, they kill him somehow and blood splats out on the window in CGI. And I have to say, in a regular film, that might have looked okay or passable. But when you're trying to make this look like a gritty, grainy home movie, essentially, it's a home video camera, camcorder, from the early 70s, early mid-70s, CGI really pops out. It was made for $5 million. It's really not an effects film. You could have made one squib to just get practical blood on the window. I know this really shouldn't be a rant because my complaints are really minor, at least till we get to the end. But, you know, Ben gets through to someone and says, you know, we can't let you... Oh, and then Nate's body is dragged off by a larger moonrock creature. He launches the thing, and then pretty much it gets through that he is also infected, and then communication is cut. And then once he hits orbit, he's in free fall. And then there's like what was it? Something about a bunch of rocks inside that all came to life and attacked him, and eventually he was killed. which, well, he then collides into the command module. And then we get, like, home videos of a barbecue that all three guys were at, and says, you know, each one died in some sort of training crash, but their bodies were never recovered. Ben, I did like the scene where Ben is saying, you know, I have a wife and kids, and I better see them again. And whoever he's talking to says, well, we'll make sure they know that you died a hero. That could have been very intense had there been more character development. There really is nothing to these characters. I mean, the most we get is that Anderson is a family man. Ben is a family man. That's pretty much it. And you know, the whole tagline, there's a reason why we never went back to the moon. And it says how we never tried again after this mission. And if he really did collide with the command module or whatever, surely the camera and footage was gone. And if we never went back to the moon, how did we come in possession of this footage? That's the biggest plot hole to this movie. You know, it's kind of like in the Goonies when Chunk says, if he killed all his men, how'd the map or the story get out? But even more, like, it's space and the moon. And then there's a whole thing where I think it was Nate was talking to Ben about how, you know, this was never a moon mission, where essentially guinea pigs, like, they knew this shit was up there. They knew these creatures were up there, possibly that the Russians were killed. And they sent us, essentially. Which, I know there'll be people, conspiracy theorists, like, well, of course, they want people to go so they can do evil shit that I trained my brain to believe. I have a hard time buying that it was a guinea pig thing. Some of the editing doesn't work with found footage. It's actually in here a couple times. There's one where Nate is all infected. He's laying in his bunk and he's kind of got the camera on his chest. He's looking at it. And it's got these really quick kind of like Saw edits where, you know, he's kind of shaking his head and it gets all like slow-mo and he's making these faces and he's fine. Like, his head's still, but it keeps cutting to him like shaking his head with the sort of the way like a Saw movie would have those like fast, rapid cuts. Doesn't really work with found footage. It happens again later with Ben while he's shooting up too fast. There is a scene with music, and it is because he's playing music on something. That's how you use music in found footage. I've seen some found footage where it's like a soundtrack or a score, and that really doesn't work. And then I think it tries to end with sort of a open-ended twist kind of cliffhanger. Because it has some end captions about how, you know, we never did go back. But like 840 pounds of moon rocks were collected from previous missions and given out to dignitaries of foreign countries. And many of those, quote, gifts have been stolen or missing. Meaning a lot of those were moon rock alien creatures, and now they're on Earth. There really wasn't much to this movie. I found myself, like the first 25 minutes, I kept having to like snap myself back into it, backtrack 5-10 minutes and catch up because I was drifting in and out of this movie. I like the concept. It is kind of like the tagline to Alien, like, in space, no one can hear you scream. It is one of those things, like, it's very isolated. So you have that sort of yet claustrophobic. I mean, space is big and open, but the way they shot the inside of the shuttle, like how everything's cramped and close together, I did like that. It does have some atmosphere to it. I I can give it that. The space scenes are well shot. The set design is very nice. The space suits look very period. They don't really look modern or high tech really. The two of the cast members actually, it sounds weird to say they look like someone from that period, but they really do. The guy that played Ben Anderson, he looked like an actor. But yeah, there's really no character development. Um, if I want to see a slow burn space movie, I'll watch 2001. You know, I still think that's the greatest space film ever made. I'll put that over any Star Wars film any day. Even found footage. I mean, I'll definitely put Blair Witch over this. Way over this. Um, Rec 2, even Quarantine. I would probably even put Last Exorcism over this. Yeah. I mean, at least with that, I got into the concept more about this former priest, a, a bullshit artist, showing all the gags of an exorcism. The ending to that pissed me off, like the rest of the world, but yeah, Apollo 18 is one of those movies I really don't know what to say about it. I am kind of glad they didn't really show much of the creatures. That does create more intrigue. I mean, in Blair Witch, no matter what the witch looked like, it would have looked stupid. Which they did show in the 2016 film. Another reason why that one's stupid. But Apollo 18, really not much to it. That's really the best I can say. It has elements that kept me interested, but it took a bit to get there. And for a movie that's really only 75 minutes long, I mean, that's the length of an average DC animated film. I was bored. The best thing about it would be its concept, the cinematography, like the filters used to make it look like a 70s home video. And that's basically it. So, jamaral81, I hope you like this review. I don't know if you were expecting a huge rant or not, but it was just kind of mediocre to okay. There's not really a whole lot to say about it, but yeah. Apollo 18, it's there. Thank you for watching.